Hello everyone and welcome back to Gresley. Here I'm going to detail and weather a Gresley Class N2. In order to do this I'm going to change the emblem from the British Railways early emblem to the later emblem. To take the old emblem off, I just rubbed it with a glass fibre pen until it was removed, and then applied some gloss varnish, which has now thoroughly dried, and I'm ready to apply the decals. The decals are from Model Master, and it's the small BR locomotive emblems that I'm going to apply. I have some reference photographs and I will use these while applying the new emblems and when I come to do the weathering. The lion emblem on this side faces forward, so we need one of the small decals with the lion facing forward, and I'll just soak this in water for about 30 seconds. I'll just apply a little decal setting solution onto the area where the new emblem is to go. And the new emblem is ready to be slid off the backing into position. Carefully. And now, using the photo reference, I will position this just using a paintbrush. That's looking about right. So I take a small piece of tissue and just carefully press that in position. And then we can let that dry. When that's dry, I'll turn it over and repeat the process for the emblem on the other side. I also applied some overhead electricity flashes there and there. Now they are fully dried, I'm going to apply some Johnson's Clear or any acrylic matte varnish just to seal the decals. I'll then leave this overnight to dry right out before attempting to do anything more. I put a little ball of tissue paper in the cab to protect the motor, which is just inside there, when I come to spray. But I've decided to take the body off the chassis, so I'll just get rid of that. And then I'll put the body in a Pico maintenance cradle, ready to remove the chassis. There is only one screw holding the chassis to the body, but before I take that off, I'll just remove the couplings. And then remove the front screw that secures the chassis. The cab roof can be removed actually, which will make things simpler because there's some glazing in the front spectacle plates, I think they're called, and I can remove those, but it's going to be easier just to take the roof off. In order to do that, you can just unclip it from just behind the coal and then push it out. The glazing can be removed from the roof by inserting a blade between the front of the cab and the glazing and just pushing it through the glue that holds it there. And then it can be removed. This means I can now spray quite happily without having to mask off the glazing. A couple of little bits of detailing also came off. A couple of pipes, I'm not sure what they are, but I've put them in with the glazing for replacing later. Meanwhile, I can simply replace the cab roof ready for painting. Before I get on to the weathering and painting, I'm going to add a few little bits of detail. These are loco lamp irons from Mainline trains. They come as a photo etch, and you simply cut them off and bend them and apply them. Also, I'm going to be adding some 3-link couplings at each end of the locomotive. Useful and fairly inexpensive tools for quite a few jobs on model railways is a set of small drills. This particular set is from 1mm to 2mm, and that's a set of 10 drills. And here I have a pin chuck or a small hand chuck to make holes. I shall be using this to fit the couplings. To fit the couplings, I've marked the centre of the buffer beam, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole with a 1mm drill. This I'll now open out with a 1.9mm drill, which will give a tight fit to the coupling. With the hole drilled, the coupling can be pushed and aligned to fit on the buffer beam. It's a good tight fit, so you probably don't need any glue, but I shall put a little bit of super glue in the hole just to hold it, and I'll do this front and back. You can probably see where I've drilled the hole to fit the hook, that there's a gap, obviously because I've drilled a circular hole, but it's much easier to do it this way than try and cut a slot with a knife through that quite thick plastic. When the glue is dried on this, I will apply a little bit of filler either side of it and then paint it red. I would normally have done this without the vacuum pipes fitted, but when I bought this locomotive from eBay, they come with them already glued on. While I was drilling to take the couplings, I switched in a 1.1mm drill just to open up a couple of holes in each of these braces here. I think they were to take shackles for crane lifting. Just adds that little bit of detail. This completes the front end detail now. I'll apply the chains later when the weathering's done, but you can see, I hope, how much more interesting the front end looks with its coupling hook and lamp irons. When I had the cab roof off, I was tempted to saw out the plastic coal and file this round, which I have done before on locomotives, but because this clips under this piece of coal plastic, this is really a bit important to the structure of this and the alignment. So what I'm going to do is leave this coal here and apply some artificial coal over the top when I've finished. One thing I do like to do is just check the top of the boiler here for any unsightly seams. I've had a little work on this one, but there is a little bit of a seam line there. And again, I use my coffee stirrer files. This has got 240 grit on it, and I very gently just take it down. Now it's easy to file a flat on this, so I do it very, very gently, and I try to keep, probably in the light there actually, but I'm trying to keep that sort of action going so that I don't file the top of the boiler flat. When I'm happy with that, I can buff it up with a nail buffer, and that should look okay. With the lamp irons painted and the buffer beam filled around the hook and painted, I'm ready to put on some matte varnish. I know I could use the Humbrol spray enamel varnish like I did with the cars, but I'm going to try my Liquitex. It's an artist matte varnish. It's water-based acrylic, and it's the varnish I used to use to finish the model aeroplanes. So I'm going to use some deionized water to dilute this and apply this with the airbrush. I'm going to set the locomotive up on this foam block and put some cocktail sticks, just push them into the foam so they will stop any chance of the spray blowing the body off the top there, and I'll spray it in that position. Yeah, that's really evenly matte now, which is nice. The shine's gone off the tank sides where the decals were, and it's nearly ready. I have my airbrush loaded with a grey mixture of Tamiya paints, 2 parts black to 1 part white. These are matte colours, and I'll thin this well down so it's very thin, and apply some light coats just to tone down the detailing. I'll turn the air compressor down and try and apply this thinly. There, that's about it for this coat. I don't want to lose all the detailing, so I think I'll stop there. I'm going to spray on a very thin coat again, this time of almost white. It's Tamiya flat white with a little flat black in it. and I'm going to concentrate on the top part of the locomotive and just give it some patchy variance to the overall black. I'm going to try and keep this quite subtle. And that'll do. And finally I'm going to spray a light coat of matte dark earth, and I'm going to concentrate this around the bottom of the locomotive near the running plate and just coming up the tanks. I think I might just bring that to the edge actually, so that I can get below it a little bit and just lightly apply some of this earth colour. Along the bottom line there. Just lightly, I might put a little bit of streaking down, just see if I can get a fine mark. Okay, I'm keeping it nice and subtle, at least I hope I am. Just a little bit of dirt coming up from the bottom, so I'll just turn that round and I'll bring that forward. Yeah, fairly happy with that. So that'll be all the air brushing I'll do. Before I apply the powders, I'm going to streak the sides of the tank along here with some white acrylic. I'm just going to dilute that, or just dip the brush in a small amount of water and then clean it so that it's sort of damp. Take a small amount of acrylic on the tip of the brush, and then I'm going to just put some paint along like that, just perhaps a little bit more here and there. Okay. Then clean the brush. And streak it vertically down. Now if you have too much on, or you've got some in the wrong place, just add more water. Just use some water just to thin it off. Actually, I've got a bit too much on there, I think, so I'm just going to use a tissue, run it down vertically just to clean the excess off a little bit. Now the streaking looks a little more subtle. I think that looks okay, but obviously you weather it to your own taste, and if it's not going quite right, you can always just wet it and streak it again. Actually, that's less awkward doing it like that. That looks a lot better. Yes, I'm happy with that. I'll let that dry off and then I will put on some weathering powders just to finish. I'm going to start on the top of the tank with some red oxide and just put it around the tank filling caps. I don't want too much of this sort of rusty colour or reddish colour on here, so I'm going to just keep it locally there, and then I'm going to try and just fade that out. Yeah, just apply some white to represent the ash spilled out of the smoke box door. When the smoke box is raked out. I've just turned the locomotive on its side and I'm just going to look at any other areas where I might put a little bit of the oxide weathering just to add a little bit of extra interest. On the brake box, just bring out a little light on the wheels, just to give it a sense of modelling and a sense of depth. Yeah, happy with that. I'll repeat that on the other side and that should be it. When I'm happy with the result, I'll go over everything again with several light coats of the Liquitex matte varnish. With the airbrushing finished, I finally added the coal to the tender. I used PVA adhesive brushed onto the old coal and then sprinkled some of the artificial coal on top. I did video this, but I seem to have accidentally deleted the video, so I will go over it again when I weather and detail another locomotive. That finishes it really. I added some last minute details with wire, just bending up some thin wire and using epoxy resin to glue them in place. I did the sand ejector pipes in front of the front wheels and some of the piping around the steps going up into the cab. So that's it. The overall result is not quite as subtle as I'd hoped, so I still need a bit of practice, but I hope you enjoyed the video and found it interesting, and I'll just leave you with a few still shots of this Gresley N2 locomotive. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching.